We need not give the hour by hour account of Peterloo once again, but whatever some of the drilling weavers had in mind, Hunt had exerted himself effectually in the week before the event to ensure obedience to his request for quietness and order, and a steady, firm, and temperate deportment. The leaders of the contingents were warned their followers to ignore all provocations. Many staves or walking sticks had been left behind. The presence of so many women and children was overwhelming testimony to the pacific character of a meeting which, the reformers knew, all England was watching. The attack was made on this multitude with the venom of panic. But the panic was not, as has been suggested, the panic of bad horsemen hemmed in by a crowd. It was a panic of class hatred. It was the yeomanry, the Manchester manufacturers, merchants, publicans, and shopkeepers on horseback, which did more damage than the regulars, hussars. In the yeomanry, a middle class reformer testified, there are individuals whose political rancor approaches to absolute insanity. Hunt published a list of the occupations of the yeomanry who actually served on 16 August. These included several sons of publicans and manufacturers, a wine merchant, commission agent, dancing master, cheesemonger, butcher, etc. These were the men who pursued the banners, knew the speakers by name, and sought to pay off old scores, and who mastered and cheered at the end of their triumph. There was this way and whiz that way, declared one cotton spinner. Whenever any cried out mercy, they said, damn you, what brought you here? We may get the feel of the confused field from such a passage as this. I picked up a cup of liberty. One of the cavalry rode after me and demanded it. I refused to give it up. Two others then came up and asked what was the matter, when the first said, this fellow won't give up this cup of liberty. One of the others then said, damn him, cut him down. Upon this I ran. One of the cavalry cut at Saxton, but his horse seemed restive, and he missed his blow. He then called out to another, there's Saxton, damn him, run him through. The other said, I had rather not. I leave that for you to do. When I got to the end of Watson Street, I saw 10 or 12 of the yeomanry cavalry and two of the hussars cutting at the people, who were wedged close together, when an officer of hussars rode up to his own men and, knocking up their swords, said, damn you, what do you mean by this work? He then called out to the yeomanry, for shame, gentlemen, what are you about? The people cannot get away. They they desisted for a time, but no sooner had the officer rode to another part of the field than they fell to work again. Two yeomanry privates rode up to Saxton. There is that villain, Saxton. Do you run him through the body? No, replied the other, I had rather not. I leave it to you. The man immediately made a lunge at Saxton. There is no term for this but class war. But it was a pitifully one sided war. The people, closely packed and trampling upon each other in the effort to escape, made no effort at retaliation until the very edges of the field, where a few trapped remnants, finding themselves pursued into the streets and yards, threw brickbats at their pursuers. 11 were killed or died from their wounds. That evening, on every road out of Manchester, the injured were to be seen. The Peterloo Relief Committee had, by the end of 1819, authenticated 421 claims for relief for injuries received on the field. A further 150 cases still awaited investigation. Of these, 161 cases were of sabre wounds. The remainder were injuries sustained while lying beneath the crowd or beneath the horses' hooves. More than 100 of the injured were women or girls. While there will have been some impostors, there will also have been scores of injured who did not claim relief because their wounds were slight or because they feared victimization. We may leave the field with Bamford's unforgettable picture. In 10 minutes, the field was an open and almost deserted space. The hustings remained, with a few broken and hewed flagstaves erect, and a torn and gashed banner or two drooping, whilst over the whole field were strewed caps, bonnets, hats, shawls, and shoes, and other parts of male and female dress, trampled, torn, and bloody. The yeomanry had dismounted. Some were easing their horses' girths, others adjusting their accoutrements, and some were wiping their sabres. The second point about Peterloo, which has somehow evaded definition in the sheer size of the event in terms of its psychological impact and manifold repercussions. It was without question a formative experience in British political and social history. Once again, as with Pentridge, we may distinguish between the short term and long term repercussions. Within 2 days of Peterloo, all England knew of the event. Within a week, every detail of the massacre was being canvassed in alehouses, chapels, workshops, private houses. At first, it is difficult to distinguish any clear pattern of response. The keynote among the reformers and their supporters was certainly indignation, anger, or compassion rather than alarm. Already on the field, Henry Hunt, who showed at his best during the moment of crisis, seemed to sense that for the radicals, Peterloo was a moral victory. He had been himself the victim of the yeomanry's violence. After his arrest, he had been forced to run the gauntlet between the special constables who had struck him with their staves. General Clay, with a large stick, struck him over the head with both hands as he was ascending the steps to the magistrate's house, a blow which knocked down his famous white hat and packed it over his face. Notwithstanding this treatment, when he emerged from the house, a fair minded opponent recalled, I thought I could perceive a smile of triumph on his countenance. A person, Nadine, I believe, offered to take his arm, but he drew himself back and, in a sort of whisper, said, No, no, that's rather too good a thing. For several days in Lancashire, the immediate talk was of vengeance. Manchester appeared as if under martial law. There were riots and rumors of the country people advancing in military order. Bamford has described the grinding of scythes and the preparation of old hatchets, screwdrivers, rusty swords, pickles, and mop nails.